All right, welcome back to the Halfway to Game Day podcast. I'm your host, Will Schatz. What a wild week 2 in college football. A week that I think if you were to look at it before the week started, we would have said, man, not a lot of great games this weekend. Who's really the standout game? I mean, Michigan, Texas looked good, but I mean, like really, what else? Maybe like K-State, Tulane, but all of a sudden, NIU beats Notre Dame. That wild game in Stillwater, Colorado. What's going on? We'll talk about that all. We'll jump right into it here. Let's see. All right. So the first game we're going to talk about from this week, Oklahoma State and Arkansas. This was a wild one. I was in the house for this one. And let me tell you, some nerves, a little nervy here early with this one. In the first half, you're down 14-0 at one point. Oklahoma State gets a pick 6 to make it 14-7, but then you end up going into half 21-7 down. And listen, Arkansas 10 out of 10 times wins this game in a perfect universe. Unfortunately for Arkansas, we don't live in a perfect universe. As you can see, I'm an Oklahoma State fan, but I can admit that... What in the world is this? Okay. I can admit that Arkansas absolutely should have won this game. This is... Let's hold on. Let's just look at the team stats here. Arkansas had 12 more first downs, had over 200 yards, 200 and whatever that is, 60 yards more of total offense than Oklahoma State. They outrushed Oklahoma State by almost 200 yards. But, and the time of possession, they had 13 more minutes time of possession. Now, you can say, well, they turned the ball over 2 more times than Oklahoma State. The passing was fairly comparable, but even then they threw 90 more yards. Arkansas threw 90 more yards of passing. It's the most Mike Gundy win ever, maybe. I mean, there is in no way, shape, or form that Arkansas should lose this game, and they found a way to lose. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Sam Pittman hasn't won enough games for this team to know how to win games. So Arkansas comes out, and they come out hot, and they can't sustain it. Oklahoma State, I believe that's 34-10, outscores them in the second half in overtime, and comes back to win the game. Listen, Oklahoma State gets the win. They move to 2-0. They go up to number 13 in the polls, I believe. The real question is, what is wrong with Oklahoma State's run game? And, I mean, you could just watch the games to understand what's wrong with it. The offensive line is not physical in the run game at all. It's really, really bad. And it was something that was noticeable against South Dakota State last week, but could be mitigated a little bit because South Dakota State obviously isn't on the level as a top 25 FBS school. This game, it was definitely noticeable. Oklahoma State was outmatched at the line of scrimmage on the running side. On the passing side, they handled it fine. Bowman, I don't think, took a single sack, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure where that stat would even be, but I don't think he took a single sack, which is pretty unbelievable. Let's see. Is there a way I could see that? I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, didn't take a single sack. I don't think. And so the offensive line for Oklahoma State's fine in the passing game. This run game is awful. And Jaquinda Jackson, unbelievable game. It certainly wasn't his fault. And Taylon Green, first half Taylon Green, it wasn't his fault. Second half Taylon Green, it was probably the reason they lost the game. Did not play nearly as well as he did in the first half, and that's what comes with a team that doesn't really know how to win. Oklahoma State, if they want to beat, they'll beat Tulsa this week. Fairly confident in that. if they want to beat Utah and then go into Manhattan and beat Kansas State, they have to figure out the run game. Ollie Gordon is going to have to get more than 49 yards a game to have any kind of success. This team is built off the run. They're going to have to run the ball. As for Arkansas, listen, this is a team that's probably, I don't know that they're going to make a bowl. They have an extremely hard schedule, but this is a team that might upset some people, okay? I mean, like, let's look at the schedule here. They'll beat UAB. Could they go into Auburn and win? Probably. Auburn just lost to Cal. They don't look very good. Could Texas A&M? That's a neutral site game. That's unfortunate for them because having that in Fayetteville might be good for them. They won't beat Tennessee. I'm pretty confident. They could beat LSU. I could see that. I could also see them. I mean, I think they'll beat Mississippi State, but that's a game that just seems like one they'll lose. Maybe Ole Miss. Depends on how that team gels. I mean, that's fourth to last game of the year. They probably won't beat Texas, but Texas, going to Fayetteville, maybe tough. They'll beat Louisiana Tech. They could definitely upset Missouri. By the end of the year, if Missouri, is kind of either not playing for anything or has already played for it all, could be the end. It could be an upset there. So, Arkansas season's definitely not over. You still certainly have a lot to play for. That is just one that is going to sting for a while. Next game of the week that I liked. And listen, I didn't get eyes on this one until after it went final. I got eyes on it Sunday. Penn State 34, Bowling Green 27. This is what I saw a lot of discourse on Twitter about. ESPN doesn't really ever have it in doubt, which is interesting to me. I don't know that it ever was in doubt. I think Penn State, the score looks worse than it is. Truthfully, now, it shouldn't be this close against Bowling Green. I get that. One thing we need to think about. Bowling Green is probably the favorite in the MAC. I mean, that's a tough conference. It's a lot like the Big 12 where it's really, really hard to pick a team. Bowling Green's probably the favorite in the MAC. I don't think Northern Illinois is as good as this last win made them seem, but we will see about that. As I take a sip of coffee here. I think Bowling Green is still my favorite in the MAC. We'll see, though. That's going to be a very fun league. There's going to be some fun Tuesday and Wednesday night games in that league. That's all I'm going to say. And if you're a sicko, you will be completely down to watch those games. That's going to be a really fun league. Bowling Green, like I said, is could definitely be legit in the MAC. So maybe this score doesn't look as bad. Now, here's what I will say, and here's what I'm concerned about. Drew Aller had such a great game last week. This is last season Drew Aller stats. Right? Like, this is last season mid-game, like mid-game Drew Aller stats. This does not move the needle for me. If Penn State wants to make a run in the playoff, if they have a shot to win the Big Ten, of course. I think that's Ohio State's league. But if Penn State wants to have a shot to win the Big Ten, wants to have a shot to win the Big Ten, wants to have a shot to make a run in the playoffs, Drew Aller has to be better than 13 for 2204, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Has to be better. Absolutely has to be. It's going to be hard. Now, the run game looked phenomenal for Penn State. With that being said, it should. You're playing Bowling Green, right? It should not be hard to run the football against a MAC school when you're a top 10 team in the country in arguably the best conference, definitely a top 2 conference in college football. That should not be a problem. The passing game, I think it looked a little too hard for me to get excited. Now, I'm not worried about Penn State. I think Penn State will be okay. I think they'll be fine. But maybe just keep this one in the back of your mind for the rest of the year. At least for a little bit. Maybe give it a couple weeks and just see, does this team actually, they played so good at West Virginia, but that was such a weird game because of the rain delay. And, that Mountaineer crowd was still very good, but definitely some people left. Let's keep this one in the back of our minds. Let's let's not file it away, but let's not also just like carry it around either. Let's keep this one in the forefront for just maybe a few more weeks, and the jury's still out on Penn State. All right, our next game of the week, look away Michigan fans. Yikes, this one, I definitely thought it could go this way. I definitely did. I truthfully didn't. I thought Michigan would put up more of a fight. Now, I thought Michigan would put up more of a fight preseason. After last week, I kind of thought, okay, they play Fresno close, and they don't have a quarterback. It's so shocking to me that Alex Orji could not pull away with this job in the offseason, because that's so clearly what it is. This team is so built for Alex Orji to be running the football. They can't do it. And and I'm not saying, like, Davis Warren is a good quarterback. This is an Alex Orji offense. So what I don't understand, I get that maybe he didn't pull away in the offseason. Was Davis Warren that much better than Alex Orji, that you're playing him the whole game against Texas, even when you're down, 31-6 going into the fourth quarter? Like, is it like put Orji in, try to get him some reps? I get the game's over. I mean, try to it's crazy to me. 2 carries for -1 yards for Orji. I honestly don't even remember him running the ball. I don't remember him coming into the game. Run, like, I don't know. It's so hard, this one, because on one hand, Texas is extremely good, and Texas did exactly what Texas probably wanted to do, which was throw the ball, score. Michigan can't keep up. That's exactly what they did. They out-physicaled Michigan. This Michigan team I don't think they're very good. I'm going to be honest. I don't think they're very good. That's not to say that they're bad, and that's not to say... I just don't think the playoffs are in Michigan's future this year. And I think that's pretty obvious after this game. This game, the committee will look at this and say, especially if Michigan's kind of on the bubble at the end of the year, which I don't think they will be. I think they definitely probably have 3 more losses on their schedule, maybe 2. Two more losses on their schedule. They'll probably go 9-3. They could go 8-4, but they'll probably go 9-3. And this to me solidifies that they are not a top 4 team in the Big Ten. Right now, I would probably have it as Ohio State, Penn State. I think probably jumped Oregon after this week. Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. And honestly, I would say Nebraska's number 4. I would say Nebraska's better than this Michigan team. I think they're more physical at the point of attack. I think they have a tremendously better offense. Do they play? I don't think they play. Now that I think about that, let me look at their schedule here. They do not, which Michigan kind of lucked out there. That would be a fun game, I think. I think that would prove... I think that one would be fun. That's a shame that we don't get to see that. But I don't think they'll make the Big Ten Championship. I don't think they'll make the playoff. As for Texas, listen, guys. Think about the question. I know he probably doesn't feel it, but think about the pressure Quinn Ewers is under. Because if he has one bad game, there's a whole fan base that's saying, put in Arch Manning, put in Arch Manning, put in Arch Manning. That's a lot of pressure to be under. And what does he do? Well, he just leads the number 3 team in the country to a 31-12 win in the Big House against the number 10 team in the country, and throws for 3 touchdowns and is extremely efficient while doing it. That's all he does. I'm not so sure I'm like super high on Ewers as a season-long quarterback, but this game, Very, very good. I was extremely impressed by Ewers. Michigan's got to figure out their quarterback situation. Texas, this is what the game comes down to. Michigan has to figure out their quarterback situation. No dur. Texas is really good, man. They're really good. And this one right here, man. That game against Georgia in Austin. Listen, Oklahoma didn't look very good, but that's, that game is always nuts. So there's definitely a possibility that game just goes crazy. They're going to beat UTSA. They're going to dismantle UTSA. They're going to dismantle UL Monroe. They're going to beat up Mississippi State pretty bad. They probably are going to, unless OU makes a huge turnaround in the next couple weeks, they're probably going to beat OU pretty bad. That Georgia game, man, that is going to be tremendous. It's going to be maybe the game of the year. It could, honestly, by that point, if Ohio State, just kind of plays their game, if Texas looks really good, that could be a game of the century. It could be a number 1 versus number 2. That could be a really, really good game. They're going to destroy Vanderbilt. They're going to destroy Florida probably. They're probably going to beat up on Arkansas. That could be a letdown spot, though. They're going to beat Kentucky pretty bad. Kentucky, man, what are we doing? And they're probably going to beat up on Texas A&M. But that's a rivalry game, so that, who knows? This Texas team, man. I'm actually kind of excited. They're really good. They're really good. It's this one. This team's going to be very, very fun to watch. Next game of the week. Kansas State beats Tulane 34-27. Now, I have a couple gripes about Kansas State. We'll start with them. I'm not fully convinced Avery Johnson can push the ball down the field. He hasn't shown it to me in week 1. He hasn't shown it to me in week 2. That he can completely push the ball down the field. That's not to say he played bad against UT Martin. That's not to say he played bad against Tulane. That's to say I'm not fully convinced that he can push the ball down the field yet. That's not to say he can't develop. Obviously, he's a freshman. He's going to, I think, he didn't play enough games last year to be, they have him listed as a sophomore. I think he's a redshirt freshman, is he not? Regardless, now, what's one thing Kansas State really has never done in the history of their team? Push the ball down the field. They've been very good with running quarterback, and they've been very good at just power runs. So if that's what Kansas State wants to run, that's great. It's going to work out great for them. I need to see Kansas State be more physical, though. If they want to run like that, that's fine, but they have to be more physical. Tulane is a very physical team. They have a lot of Power 5 transfers that just have that size. So this is not really a bad, like, not physical Tulane team. It's not like you're out here playing UMass, right? You're playing a very physical Tulane team. They have to get more physical. They have to. They can't rely on what is a 24-point, 17 unanswered in the second half to win games every week, especially in the Big 12. This is very similar to that Oklahoma State game. Kind of concerning. These are two teams that are supposed to be at the top of the Big 12. Utah looks good first 2 weeks. These two teams this week and week 2 kind of struggle. As for Tulane's going to be a tough out. I honestly think they could beat OU this week outright. I wouldn't bet it, but I think it's possible. This Tulane team could give them fits. They're fun. They're high flying. They like, that's going to be an interesting game. I don't really have much else to say about this game. Kansas State, like a lot of these teams, like Penn State, I would say, jury's still out. Jury's still out. They could be really good. They could be kind of mid. We'll see. Iowa State, you did it. You exercised your demon. Oh my goodness. Iowa State. What? Iowa State? You did it. You exercised your demon. You beat Iowa in Iowa City. What? Are you kidding me? A 54-yard walk-off field goal to win the game? Iowa, what are we doing? We've spent the last however many years talking about how Iowa just does this to teams, where they beat them up, they run the ball like hell, beat the hell out of the enemy team, or the opposing team. The enemy team kind of sounds corny. The opposing team, and wins the game. They sit on a lead, and they don't give you the ball back, and they punt really well, and they win the game. They play football like it was invented. They got beat at their own game. Iowa State came out in the second half and said, okay, we know exactly what they're going to do. We know exactly what they're going to do. And they came out, and they beat them. They beat them at their own game. Unreal. This is the first time probably we've ever seen that out of Iowa State, where they have just completely stiffened and said, nope, we are going to go do pretty much the exact opposite of what Iowa's going to do, and we're going to beat them. We're going to beat their defense. Cade McNamara is the... Hold on. Let me think about this before I say it. Cade McNamara is the worst Power 5 starting quarterback in the country. I don't think is capable of playing quarterback at an average level, let alone a Power 5 level. I don't think he's any good. And you can say, well, last week, he had however many yards last week. Like, he was so good last week. They played Illinois freaking State, right? Heck, Cade McNamara. Hey, maybe he'd be good at the... is Illinois State even FCS? I'm going to assume they are. Maybe he'd be good at the FCS level. Maybe he'd be a really good quarterback at the FCS level. And if so, congratulations, Iowa. You have a average FCS quarterback. Woohoo! Woohoo! The sad part is Cade McNamara is their best option. Who else are they going to go to? That's the problem. Caleb Johnson. I'm so sorry. That offensive line. I'm so sorry that you don't have a quarterback that is capable of pushing the ball down the field at all. At all. These two teams recruit the same talent in the same state. And Iowa just... I don't get it. I don't get it. Iowa, what's concerning to me is that if Iowa State would have missed the field goal and it would have been 19-17 and Iowa win in Iowa City, we would have been like, Iowa did it again. They won the game the way that they win the game, and they always do that. This is the first time that they've lost this way, that they haven't been able to do it. It's really bad. This honestly is like probably hit the panic button for Iowa. And I know what you're going to say. Well, they lost to a Power 5 team that's probably better than a lot of people think in the Big 12. True, they probably are. The defense is still good. They held them to 20 points. The problem is that you've now gotten beat at your own game. So your game, while still probably effective, is not hitting at the clip it used to, because the clip it used to hit at was 100%. And it's no longer hitting at that clip, which means maybe it's time to change, because this is about to spiral. I'm pretty sure this is about to spiral. Now, if we look at Iowa's schedule, let's see. Troy, that's a win. Minnesota could beat them. They play the same way. They're going to get ravaged by Ohio State. Oh yeah, they're going to get ravaged. They'll probably beat Washington. They could beat Michigan State. They'll beat Northwestern. Wisconsin? UCLA, they'll probably beat Maryland. Maryland looked pretty good. I mean, I think didn't they lose? They did lose, but I think they looked better than in that loss than Michigan State did. I thought they played better, but and they'll lose to Nebraska for sure. Iowa, what are we doing, man? This, I think it's probably maybe after this year time for Ferentz to just say, hey, you know what? I've overstayed my welcome here. Let's get some new blood in there. Let's throw the ball around. But until then, I think that this could spiral. I think maybe it's possible Iowa just continues to lean on people, but this is, I think, a worse loss than some people in the country are making it out to be. This is a really, really bad loss. Next game of the week, it wasn't anything. This was a mid game. I'm just kidding, obviously. I mean, the game wasn't good. This was not a good game, but it's an upset. Notre Dame 14, Northern Illinois 16. I skipped through this game on the rewatch quite a bit because it was that bad. It was so boring. Good for Northern Illinois. Notre Dame doesn't have any real weapons on offense. I'm not convinced. They don't. Their secondary on defense is very good, but still, you allow Ethan Hampton to go 10 for 19 for 200 yards and a touchdown. Maybe that secondary is not quite as good as we thought, but I think they're still very good. Besides that, defensive line's not very good. The linebackers aren't very good. Quarterback sucks pretty bad. Throwing the ball. Running the ball would be fine, and honestly, I think if they would have stuck with a QB run game during this game, they probably would have won by 2 touchdowns. For whatever reason, they decided to make Riley Leonard prime Joe Montana, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. 20 for 32 for 163 and 2 interceptions. Just proves that. Notre Dame won't make the playoff. You know, I listened to the Cover 3 podcast, which is an excellent podcast. And Tom Fernelli made a good point that I kind of thought about, where he said, this should be a college football playoff eliminator. Like, they should not be able to get into the playoff, but yet people are still talking about them being able to get in the playoff. They're eliminated. I do agree that nobody should be talking about them getting into the playoff. I don't think they have a chance. I think that this is a complete eliminator. Now, on the Northern Illinois side, listen, you have a win now that if you just play well in the MAC, and this is a coin flip league. This is a complete coin flip league. You have a chance. You could beat NC State and drop one of your others. If you go 11-1 with wins over NC State and Notre Dame, you could make the playoff. Seriously. Now, I don't think Northern Illinois is the best team in the MAC, like I discussed earlier. I think that's Bowling Green. But we're at a point now where you've gotten the hardest game on your schedule out of the way, and you won on the road. Now, you got to go to NC State. Who knows how that game goes? NC State, we'll talk about them next. Might have some issues too. This Northern Illinois could be the team that is representing the group of 5 for the first time. And if that's the case, they're going to get ravaged. They will get destroyed. I believe in the playoff. I mean, I guess they could upset somebody. They just upset the number 5 team in the country, but I don't think Notre Dame. I had Notre Dame, I think, at 9 in my rankings before the week. I thought 5 was asinine. We now see that they're probably not even a top 15 team. So I definitely don't think the AP has them. Yeah, the AP has them at 18. So interesting game. I think both these teams are probably worse than what this game would show. Like, I think this game shows, hey, Notre Dame's bad. I think Notre Dame's probably worse than bad. This game shows, hey, Northern Illinois might be good. I think Northern Illinois is probably just a slightly above average back team. So this is a really bad loss for Notre Dame. And Marcus Freeman is probably in trouble with his job, depending on how the rest of this year goes, obviously. But if they don't make the playoff, I think he's gone. Don't quote me on that, but that's just the vibes I'm getting. The fact that this is not the first time or the second time this has happened. You cannot be losing at home as a 4-touchdown favorite against an unranked MAC school as a top 5 team in the country. It can't happen. And this is probably the end of Marcus Freeman in South Bend. But we'll see. We'll see. The next game we're going to discuss, Tennessee. This was one of my best bets of last week. I did alt line Tennessee 13.5. I figured they would win by 2 touchdowns. I got it early. The line did end up being 13.5. I got it, I think, at 8.5 or 9.5, and I alt-lined it to 13.5 because I liked that. I should have alt-lined it to 28.5 or 35.5 or 45.5. It would have hit. Wait, I'm 45.5 would not have hit. 35.5 would have, though. Right? Am I tripping? Yes. 45.5 would have, too. No. Should have all-lined it to 40.5. It would have hit. Oh, my gosh. Okay, Tennessee. Here's the funny thing. 16 for 23 for 211, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for Nico. You might think, well, NC State, 2 interceptions for a young quarterback. It's probably a closer game than what the experts thought. It sure wasn't. They got ran all over. Dylan Sampson, 20 carries, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Nico, 8 carries, 65 yards, a touchdown. Deshaun Bishop, 10 carries, 42 yards. They got ran all over for 249 yards. Here's the crazy stat this is nuts to me. NC State had 143 yards of total offense. They couldn't move the ball at all. It's probably, it may be the worst offensive performance of the week. They couldn't move the ball at all. It was unbelievable. On the rewatch, it was actually painful. I had to skip through maybe some like half or 3/4 of the NC State offensive drives because I just knew they weren't going to move the ball. Grayson McCall is giving Cade McNamara a run for his money as the worst Power 5 quarterback. Grayson McCall was bad. Actually, who had a higher QBR? Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, Grayson McCall, congratulations. Your QBR was more than double of Cade McNamara's this week. But 15 for 22 for 104 and an interception? What are we doing? Hollywood Smothers was their leading rusher, 6 carries for 25 yards. What are we doing? We're just running out there. There were only 5 receivers that caught a pass. Grayson McCall lost 2 fumbles and threw an interception. I think the turnover battle was pretty much the same, wasn't it? Yeah. Fairly close. NC State had 1 more, and they lose by 41. The game's kind of close at halftime, and then they just pull away. NC State, maybe not the season. Maybe not the season. I think I heard somebody say this, that NC State is like a group of 5, all-star team. Probably true. And they can't match up to these real good SEC Big Ten teams. Now, luckily, they play in the ACC, which they probably will have success in the ACC. Tennessee, very good. I think controversial opinion. Tennessee very good. They beat up on Chattanooga. They beat up on NC State. They've allowed 13 points all year. They play Kent State next. They're gonna destroy them. They go into OU. Listen, that game might be a bloodbath. I'm gonna be honest. If you don't think Josh Heupel is excited to go back to OU into their stadium and put a beating on OU, they might get up by 40 and not take their foot off the gas. That might be a heck of a game. Now, they still have to play Georgia. They still have to play Alabama. It's a tough schedule, but it certainly works out. I think Tennessee's a playoff team, assuming everybody stays healthy, of course. I think Tennessee's a playoff team. NC State, back to the drawing board. You've got to figure out a way to move the ball down the field. Next game up. The Nebraska dynasty could be dead after this weekend. The Colorado dynasty could be dead after this weekend. Colorado. I mean, where do I start? Do I start with the fact that your quarterback leaves the field with, 2 minutes left in the game or whatever? Do I start with that? Do I start with the fact that he blames the offensive line for the problems? Do I start with the fact that nobody in that locker room is saying the right thing at all? The whole team's falling apart, truthfully. I think Deion's trying to save it, but here's the problem. And I thought this whenever Colorado hired Deion. The Colorado administration sold their soul for 4 years of hype, 3 years of hype. Hopefully 3 years of hype. I think they're going to get 2 out of it. They sold their soul hoping that Shedeur and Travis Hunter could carry the team to wins and have a lot of hype. It didn't work. Shedeur's going to graduate. He's going to go to the draft. Travis Hunter's going to go to the draft. Do you think Deion's going to stick around after this season? I don't. I think Deion will go coach in the NFL, or I think he's going to go to a bigger brand. If FSU keeps losing, if they have a really bad season and go 2-10 or 1-11, which I don't think will happen, that is not a prediction. But if the bottom completely fell out, everybody gave up, and they fired Norvell, which even at 2-10, would they fire Norvell if he? That's tough. But let's say they did. Deion's gone. Deion's gonna go coach Florida State. If that job were offered to him. Now, let me cover Nebraska before I continue on with Colorado. Nebraska is good. Back to Tennessee. I think Nebraska, solid defense, good quarterback, good run game, good coaching. They're going to be good. I don't think they'll make the playoff. I have them as the 4th best team in the Big Ten right now. I don't think they'll make the playoff. But I do think they've got more wins on their schedule, and they'll probably upset somebody. So I'm excited to continue to watch Nebraska football. Colorado, I think they probably lose a couple more games. If they lose this weekend to Colorado State, I think they're favored by 7. If they lose this weekend, it's definitely possible the season's over this early. There's another world where they're 0-3, so I guess it's not the worst outcome. But a 1-2 start with losses to Nebraska this badly, which this score doesn't tell the whole story. It was a thorough beating. Nebraska did not keep their foot down, at all. And a loss to a Colorado State team that wants it bad. They want it bad. It could be a long season for the Buffs. It really could. Shedeur, I'm not convinced as a leader. At all. I don't think he's. I think he's a good quarterback. Heck, he could even be a great quarterback. But regardless, he's an overrated quarterback. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in college football. I could probably name 9 other quarterbacks. He might be 10th. He might not be in the top 10, but I could probably name 9 other quarterbacks that are better than him. This, to me, is when Travis Hunter, and I love Travis Hunter, absolutely love him. I think he's probably the best player in college football. This, to me, is when I think that he could make a lot of money. He could step up and say, I'm going to lead this team. I'm not going to trust Shedeur to do it anymore because Shedeur is just throwing everybody under the bus, his whole offensive line. He's going to get creamed every game now because his offensive line isn't going to fight for him. Travis Hunter could pull this team back together, or attempt to. I'm not saying I don't know his leadership skills or anything like that, but he could pull this team back together, or try to, and make himself a lot of money. He could go higher in the draft because of that. Now, I still think he'll probably be a top 3 pick, but this season the wheels could fall off here for Colorado pretty quick. So something to watch. Nebraska, good. Colorado, probably going to be bad. Probably going to be very bad. My game of last week. This was a doozy. I was going to go to sleep, but I stayed up to watch this. Oregon 37, Boise State 34. Oregon, 2 weeks in a row. Tough games. Tough games. Boise State, good. Very good. Oregon, man, they find a way to win. I'll give them that. This is a scrappy group. They find a way to win. Dylan Gabriel, not making the crucial error. They're playing their game. Their special teams looks good. I don't think these last 2 games prove to me that Oregon is bad or like not as good. This is still a top 10 team in the country, in my opinion. They've just got to find a way to stop teams. That's the problem. They have to find a way to stop teams, and they have to find a way to maybe just be slightly more aggressive on offense. If they can put the pedal down a little bit on the offensive side and get a little bit more physical on the defensive side, this could still be a good team. Now, is my attitude changed if they were to have lost this one? Probably not. I just probably wouldn't have been as high as them as top 10. This is for sure a top 15 team in the country. Absolutely. Now, listen. This is also not a hot take. Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country. I will admit it as an Oklahoma State fan who loves Ollie Gordon. Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country. No doubt about it. It's unbelievable to me, some of the like scrums and basically like, oh, they're about to blow the whistle, he's down, that he pops up out of it and just keeps running. His vision's insane. He's got good open field speed. And a lot of credit to the big guys up front because they were able to block up a normally very physical Oregon team. Ashton Jeanty is very legit, and he honestly, I hope he doesn't get screwed, and I hope Boise State continues to win games because he should be sitting in New York. He's a heck of a player. MVP of this game, though, obviously for Boise State, it was Ashton Jeanty. Oregon State apologies, Oregon fans. Oregon special teams, excellent special teams. I think they have a block punt that they recovered for a touchdown, I believe. Let me take a look here. They had the punt return, 0-yard kickoff return. That must have been the block punt, if I had to think. Not sure. Regardless, Oregon's special teams looked good. They looked very sound. Sometimes special teams just go out there and they kind of look like, oh, we're just gonna, run around and make a fair catch and then run off the field. Oregon's special teams came out there with a purpose, and they looked very, very crisp and good. Actually, Oregon, here's what I'll say. They looked crisp. They didn't make a lot of mistakes. They were playing a really good Boise team. This is also the Group of 5 team that could be in the playoff, in my opinion. I don't think Liberty can be after their performance this week. I think Liberty probably, against instead of having the least hard schedule in the country, against a schedule that's maybe the 100th toughest in the country, they probably are an 8-4 team. I don't think they're all that good. But Oregon, just like Penn State, just like Kansas State, jury is still out, but not as much on you. I think I know what you are, but we'll wait and see. Give me another 2 weeks, and I'll get back to you. 2 games I want to mention. I'm not going to bring up the box scores or anything. Alabama and South Florida. Alabama ended up beating South Florida 42-16, and LSU beat Nicholls State 44-21. Now, you might be thinking, especially if you didn't watch those games and you're just hearing this recap, why are those games important? They seem like blowouts. Number 4 team and number 18 team beat up on bad opponents. True. They were closer than that, though. I wouldn't advise going back and watching South Florida, Alabama, because that game was boring until about the last 5 minutes. But it was close. It was close. Don't let them fool you. It was close. Very narrow. Don't let them fool you. Okay, so now that the recap is done, that took about 45 minutes, so that's good. We're gonna move into our top 5 games of next week, and here they are. You can see them on the screen. I'll read them out, and then we'll kind of go through one by one and discuss them. Friday night at 7 p.m., number 20 Arizona visits number 14 Kansas State, who's a 7.5 point favorite. I saw this on Twitter being referred to as the battle for the cat scratching post. I like that. Both teams Wildcats. That's good. Saturday at 11 a.m., Memphis versus Florida State. Florida State is a 6.5 point favorite at home against Memphis. Interesting. 11 a.m., number 16 LSU is favored by 7.5 at South Carolina. At 11:45, these times are all Central Time too. I live in the Central Time Zone, so we're going Central Time. At 11:45, number 24 Boston College versus number 6 Missouri, who is a 17 point favorite at home. And the game of the week, and this is the one that I said could end the Colorado, in quotes, dynasty. 6:30 p.m. Colorado is a 7 point favorite on the road at Colorado State. Let's talk about the Friday night game first. This one's just going to be interesting. Arizona's offense looked really good in the first game, looked very bad in the second game. Their defense did not look good in the first half of the first game. Looked pretty good in the second half and looked pretty good last week. So, which Arizona team are we going to get? Which offense are we going to get? Kansas State. Can Avery Johnson throw the ball a little bit? Can he throw it around? Are they going to run it all the time? I think they can probably run it against that Arizona front pretty well. Here's what I would suggest. I don't have any betting tips on this game. I am not going to bet this game. This game scares me. I'm not sure how it's going to go at all. I don't really have any edge one way or the other. Maybe Kansas State slightly. This is an underwatch for sure. I definitely think this game could go under. I would definitely say that this would be one that maybe look at the under if you really wanted to bet it and you had money burning a hole in your pocket, but I would suggest staying away from this one. Memphis versus Florida State. Florida State, less than a touchdown favorite at home against Memphis, and listen, I think they could lose this one. Now, does DJU continue to start? I think so. That might be a mistake. This Florida State offense is inept. It is completely inept. They cannot throw the ball, which just allows teams to stack the box. They force a ton of 3-and-outs, or they force themselves into a ton of 3-and-outs. They throw the ball in the flat. They get tackled. Memphis is physical. Memphis has a lot of Power 5 transfers. Memphis can get out and wrap you up in the open field. Florida State, This is a must win. And I didn't think I would be saying that for Florida State in week 3. This is a must win. Your season is on the line. This is it. This is it. 11 a.m., number 16, LSU is a 7-point favorite to South Carolina. Listen, I don't think South Carolina's that good. I don't know why this game has gotten so much hype. Truth be told, I think game day is going there. I don't see why this game has gotten so much hype. I think LSU rolls. Truth be told, I think LSU probably dominates South Carolina and gets out of there with a win. I think they're starting to figure it out. Who knows? Maybe South Carolina will prove me wrong. 11:45, number 24 Boston College versus number 6 Missouri. Listen, I don't think Missouri's all that legit. I think they're kind of a team full of above average players that's playing above average. Tip my cap. Great. We're going to find out this week. I don't think Boston College is all that good either. So I don't know that we're going to find out 100% this week. We're going to find out if they can beat a top 25 team, what the AP poll deems a top 25 team. I don't know that they are, but what they deem as a top 25 team, if they can cover a 17-point spread at home. We're going to find out. Boston College, one thing I could say, they've got a pretty good offensive line. I can say that pretty confidently based off that Florida State game. Thomas Castellanos, either go absolutely buck wild and throw 8 interceptions or play very smart and don't throw any. Don't do the whole, I'm going to throw 1 or 2 interceptions that loses us the game. If you're going to lose the game off interceptions, throw a ton of them, please, because it's so much fun to watch. The game of the week, 6:30 p.m. My game of the week, 6:30 p.m. Colorado is a 7-point favorite at Colorado State. I think they win. I think they cover. I think Colorado can do this. Come on, Colorado, beat Colorado State. I think they can do this. If they don't, if they go into Colorado State and lose, the first off, crowd's going to be crazy. You already know this. This is Colorado State's Super Bowl. This is the game they've been preparing for. Crowd is going to be nuts. It's going to be so hostile for Colorado. It's going to be nuts. If Colorado loses, the wheels could fall off. That's my prediction. They could. My prediction is the wheels could fall off. They probably could fall off. Travis Hunter has to have a monster game. He has to have a monster game. I don't think anybody else on this team can do it. There's nobody else on this team, including Shedeur, that could just put the team on their back. Travis Hunter has to put the team on his back. This would be a bad loss. Go get them, Colorado. You have to now. There probably isn't a tomorrow if you don't. We're going to take a look at my bets that I would watch. So the bet watch this week, Oklahoma State versus Tulsa under 62.5. I think that there's a good chance Oklahoma State's able to run the ball, and they just pound it over and over. I don't think Tulsa's... It's so interesting because Oklahoma State gives up so many big plays that it's definitely possible that Tulsa, scores 24 and kind of eliminates this if Oklahoma State scores 40. I think Oklahoma State's going to try to keep everything in front of them. Tulsa, young quarterback, probably going to maybe give them easy checkdowns, maybe run the ball quite a bit against a little bit more banged up Oklahoma State front than you would have thought after the first 2 games. If this bet doesn't win, I'm not going to bet this one, because if it doesn't win, it's because Tulsa was able to throw the ball because Colin Oliver's out for Oklahoma State, and they don't really have a pass rush without him. So if the under doesn't hit here, that's why. I think Oklahoma State's really, really, really wants to get Ollie Gordon going. I think that they have the guys that can run block against this Tulsa front. I think they run the ball. I don't think, if this under doesn't hit, I don't think it'll be Oklahoma State's fault. I think it'll be Tulsa's fault. So, Tulane covers 13.5 against Oklahoma. Like I said earlier, I could see Tulane winning this game outright. I'm not betting this because I think there's definitely a chance that OU looks better all of a sudden and just turns it around and kind of plays up to that OU standard at any point in the season, and that could be this game. I will probably not bet against OU all year unless there's a spread that's just like really skewed to me. But this is definitely one to watch. I think there's a good possibility that Tulane covers. I am not betting it, but I think there's definitely a possibility that Tulane can cover the 13.5. Arkansas 13.5 against a first half against UAB. Arkansas, I think, is going to come out very angry. And I think there's a chance they take their foot off the gas late. This is going to be a blowout. This is going to be a rout. I'm fairly confident. Either that, if this bet doesn't win, it's because Arkansas is completely demoralized and they come out slow. That's the only way. Arkansas 2-touchdown lead going into halftime, I don't think is out of the question. This might be one that I bet later in the week if it's still at 13.5. I think that's way too low. But I do like that one. That's a bet watch. It's a bet watch. It's not one that I'm definitely going to bet. And finally, for my best bets of the week, UNLV versus Kansas over 58. UNLV's offense has been clicking the first 2 weeks. Kansas, I think, has a good defense. I don't think they're great. And I think they can score more points than they did on Illinois' defense. I'm going. These are bets that I'm going to make. I never give betting advice. This is not betting advice. This is not me saying these are locks. These are stamps. These are, all these big words that some of these podcasts use. I don't want to say that because I don't want you to think that this is financial advice for you to bet. It is not. It is absolutely not financial advice, or it is not betting advice. These are what I'm going to bet. This is what I'm putting my money on. If it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. I'm not playing with my life savings, right? Don't make these bets and then say, "Oh, I put my mortgage down on it." No, I'm not a Vegas insider. I'm not a shark. Like, I just bet a little here, a little there, a couple units, and I get out and I have fun. UNLV versus Kansas over 58. Like I said, UNLV's offense is good. Kansas's offense is pretty good. I think Kansas is able to score more than they did last week on Illinois. I definitely see this one hitting the over 58. Memphis versus Florida State under 52. I think Memphis is going to try to win, and I think Florida State is going to try to lose. I like that combo with the more talented team trying not to lose. Unders. I always like unders. I think Memphis could win. And if Memphis does win, I think it'll be like a 24-7 game or a 24-14 game. Regardless, both unders. Give me the under. LSU covers 7.5 against South Carolina. Like I said earlier, I think LSU routes South Carolina. This could be an alt line situation for me. I don't know that I trust LSU that much yet to go alt line, but definitely later in the week it might be. Arizona State minus 1.5 against Texas State. This is one that I saw. I was going to put it in my bet watch, but I actually put it in the locks. Arizona State's played pretty good through the 2 weeks. They kind of let Mississippi State come back a little bit last week, but they've played pretty dang good, I would say. And I think if you're giving them 2 points on the road, if you're asking them to win by 2 points on the road against Texas State, I think they could run the ball all day against Texas State. Give me Arizona State minus 1.5 to go 3-0 on the year. Good for Arizona State. They're playing way better than I thought they would. So good for them. And that's going to do it for this week. That's everything that I had on the agenda. Final thoughts. I don't know that this week can live up to. I was concerned that week 2 would live up to week 1, what week 1 gave us. It did. So when I say this, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know that week 3 has any chance of living up to what week 2 did. A lot of good games this week. A lot of good games this week. Not a lot of great games, but we are. This is an exciting time in college football. We're about to enter like the full swing of conference season for a lot of these teams. A couple upset opportunities if South Carolina comes out and knocks off LSU, maybe if Tulane knocks off OU. A couple upset opportunities, so we will see. I think that's all for today. if you liked this episode, please consider subscribing, following the Instagram, following the Twitter, like the video, and we will see you guys next Wednesday for a recap and for more insight. This has been the Halfway to Game Day podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will Schatz, and thank you for listening.